Recording in progress.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting of Select Board meeting of Tuesday, July 23rd to order. First item is approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Is there an addition for?
That was my next.
Okay,
question.
good.
Happy to chair the meeting if you'd like. Are there any amendments to the draft agenda?
Yes, please. We'd like to add number 11, Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant, a request from the Energy Committee.
Okay. Anything else? Do we have enough to deal with the road names? Did that come through yet?
No.
So that's not available?
Right.
And the draft development agreement?
We can discuss that briefly, some of the provisions.
So with the addition of item number 11, all in favor of approving the agenda as drafted? With that?
Aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Next is approval of the consent agenda.
I move.
Second.
Seconded. Anybody, there is a note on the policy review committee. By approving it, we would be sending something to the policy review committee to look at our sole source purchasing and provide some detail to that policy. Anything else on the minutes?
Just a quick question on that that policy review committee assignment. Didn't we just update the purchasing agreement? We extended the amounts.
Yes.
Is that unrelated to this, or is it all part
It would be looking at that particular provision, the sole source aspect of the purchasing policy.
Okay, so just part. Okay, great. Thanks for the clarification.
So would the policy committee be talking to the department heads that typically have these kinds of requests, and Public Works, Police, for specialty things? They would meet with the department heads on this? Okay.
I guess that would be our hope. Okay? All in favor of approving the consent agenda as drafted, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Citizen comments. Is there anybody here for something not on the agenda? Please.
Hi, Ellen Cronin, South Street. So I'm here to share with you an email that was obtained via a FOIA request. It's an email from Julia Bedoin to Seal Larson, who work for DEC and specifically work with groundwater and well assessment. So I have, I printed out just 2 copies, which I'll just share. Specifically, it's with regard to our water and the fact that as a citizen, I am concerned that the source is not being appropriately protected. So in the Aquifer Assessment Report from 1980, which I'm sure we have, and I could send you another copy if you would like it, it does clearly state that there are some concerns with our present source water protection, and things have changed a lot in 44 years. The document and the review from Julia Bedoin clearly states that there is not a consolidated clay layer across the whole recharge area of our well, and because of that, we need to have more concern about how it's recharged, and specifically with regard to how we manage the town in the future and the airport. So I just want to bring that forward and make sure that you have a copy of that email, which is it's just a re-review of this existing report from 1980, and it highlights a number of the issues and gives essentially key takeaways. in that, which lists that, you know, it's a concern and it's something that we should we should worry about it a little bit. You know, not crazy, but we should address it. And part of my other concern is that the state document with regard to source water protection states clearly on the first page that when there are concerns, local government should be involved. And it says that up front, you know, kind of saying that they're not going to. So if we see that there's an issue, then we should be looking into it. So I just want to make sure that that you guys are aware of that and saw that email, which I think is pretty telling that there's a concern.
Okay, we'll get it scanned in
And yeah, and I can,
so everybody can read it.
I can send it if you'd like.
Could you please?
Yeah.
Send it to Kathleen, please.
Okay, and also with
I gave her
the copy
one of-
that she highlighted the report.
Okay.
So I'll send a copy of the highlighted report
Okay,
as well.
great.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Okay,
Kathleen, when you get the email with the links and everything, would you forward it out to
Yeah.
us, please?
Anybody else? Any hands up?
Let's see. So we are currently under citizens' concerns. I don't see any hands in the audience.
Okay. So, then we're gonna move to storm drainage system, Seymour Street. And Emily's going to
Hi, Emily.
give us a little bit of an update on what she's been able to find out.
So after the recent round of floods, last July 13th, we cameraed the entire storm line from the outlet to the Elm Street intersection, which would be the area in concern if there is an obstruction, and we found nothing. We found 36-inch concrete pipe in perfect condition. There was one mouse. That was the only obstacle. So that said, we did a little other just reconnaissance of the system. I think essentially what I'm seeing, the two structures, two catch basins directly underneath the underpass there, they're only 5 foot deep. So they have no storage in them whatsoever. The unfortunate part is that they can't really go deeper because the water, it's an optical illusion, but it then goes up the hill towards Lucius Shaw Lane into a structure that's 12 foot deep. And so that pipe is relatively flat by the time you gain that grade with the elevation change. It's a relatively flat pipe. So I don't know that we could really build capacity into the system, at least right there under the underpass. And the problem is that there's an enormous amount of flow coming from Chipman Hill, High Street, Elm Street, North Pleasant, Seymour Street, railroad under drain tied into it, and then Middle Seymour all goes to those two structures before it outlets. So I think in these larger storm events, and I don't know historically what the scenario has been there. Have we seen flooding in the
First time we
town?
ever saw flooding there was last year.
Yeah. So I think just the size of those two rain events were they just far exceeded the capacity of that system. And they both are in like the 1/10 of a percentile of occurring on an annual basis, which of course nobody wants to hear that when you see them annually at this point. But I think part of it is just the cycle that we're in. Last year we were in El Nino, this year we're in La Nina, and just the atmospheric cycles that occur because of those, and also the warming trend of the Atlantic. I think we are looking at more storms and bigger storms until we move out of this current cycle, which, you know, historically we do, but I think there's also climate change impacting current trends too. So I think we're sort of looking at it with, obviously there's a concern. My understanding is getting the ladder truck through for the fire in terms of emergency vehicle access through there. So I think it would be helpful to get the turning radius and information like that for the equipment that can't pass through, so that we can try to find other solutions, whether it's Printer's Alley, building a mountable curb, or some other alternative. I know you've been working with the rail, trying to figure out if that is an option.
Sean, I went in the area that he was thinking, I don't see it being feasible, but we did find another area that would be feasible, and if the board supports, I'll write a letter requesting to the state and to Vermont Rail that they would support a emergency crossing only in that area. So it would be just filling it in with ballast so that you could drive across with a ladder truck. You would have to get have to get permission from the owner of the property that we would be crossing. But the first would be to get the state and Vermont Rail to support it. Vermont Rail had said they would support a crossing, an emergency crossing.
They did say they would?
Previously, I talked to them, but that was verbally, we saw them and we talked about it.
Okay.
Now I give it
I mitigate, hazard mitigation submittals are due in mid-August, and so I had added that. I have 13 or 14 projects that I was submitting to that program, and I was going to add a rail crossing potentially to that too, if you think that would be beneficial.
Yeah, because the grade is so close to navigable there with the truck, it would be very minimal cost.
I didn't know if they would want to gate it,
You have to gate it.
so that would drive the cost up. It's
You
something,
can only gate it on one side.
right,
Because the other is there's too much going on. You can't put a gate.
okay.
Be useless anyways.
But I mean, that might be a source to help fund it, if that is an avenue we want to look into. I don't think there's any harm in submitting it. And then we can get a better idea of what we're looking at.
There is another issue in that, and Steve Senior and Junior here, the county tire, the water coming down there, it's dumping into part of the issue, I think. By walking it, you can see we've changed the water flow significantly from what was there before. Whereas before it would come and spill over into the tracks, and we all knew the rail was always, and that was one of the big complaints why the rail needed work, was because it always had the water. Well, we know where all that water was coming from. But now we're dumping all that excess water into the underpass as well, a lot of that. But it doesn't appear to be picking up. The storm drains don't appear to be picking it up with the south of county along Seymour. And
After making the corner from,
so it flows, it's flowing down Seymour because we've got a sidewalk with a curb, and so it's hitting that curb and then flowing down, and then as it gets to the nice entrance to county, it takes advantage of that nice entrance into the county.
yeah,
property.
I just drove in that way to put eyes on it again, but I think the curb cut's so big, I think if you're open to adding a curb, a paved curb, I mean, that's what we typically do in that situation.
I can't speak to that, it's not my property, but I
Well,
don't think that.
one of the curb cuts is yours, right?
mine.
One's yours and one's yours? No, they're both yours?
I own 6 inches off the front door.
Okay. There's a nice front door.
Most 99% of it's mine up till, I mean, we do not want to close the access off on the
No.
south end.
Yeah, no,
But
like
we
a
need to keep
mountable.
the water not flowing into the basement of the train station, across the parking lot, into his front door, head into the shop, and then, up into the bays. That's not acceptable. There's only 2 storm drains from the National Bank of Middlebury to the north end of where the sidewalk is, okay? And those, nowhere can begin to take on the water that's
It's the
now
sidewalk.
trapped and channeled right down Seymour Street, because it can't get away from Seymour Street. Chipman Hill, you know, High Street, North Pleasant Street, all that water runs downhill. And I'm not sure what sides the lines are, but when that was designed, I'm sure it wasn't designed to take the water we got today. I'm not sure how big the lines are coming out of the underpass. Do you know what size those are?
That's a 36-inch.
Yeah, well,
going through
guess
there,
what?
but up on Elm, it necks down to 18 to 15.
There's a
6 inch at the end of the
There's a
sidewalk.
catch basin at the end of my, south end of my property that has two 12-inch lines running into it, a 6-inch line running into it, and a 16-inch line running out. How do you think that's gonna work? We put 30 inches of water on top of the catch basin that's open to the air, but you only got a 16-inch drain going in. That, from design, was a failed, flawed design to start with.
I don't think the town has changed any of the surface elevations or the catch basins in there in decades.
The
You know,
difference in the elevation.
the difference is that we have more
is that
storms.
the
and
sidewalk
storm-
ends that was below the roadbed, and they raised that sidewalk above the roadbed, so the water coming down Methodist Lane or whatever else, or Crossfire Nice
Or
Park
you mean to the
lot,
south of you?
could go right into the train tracks.
Okay,
That's.
that may have changed.
The change for me.
Yeah. You know, but the drainage pipes
No, I'm
have
sure
been
they-
there for, and it's just a matter of increasing rainfall intensity and frequency. That's the problem.
Well,
And it's not a matter of whether, but when we're gonna get more inches of rain. And you can maybe put a little lip on there to try to keep it in the street, but it's a more fundamental issue. You know, before there was a wastewater treatment plant, there where the police station is now, there was a ravine, you know, that was the lowest drainage course through town, so all of the drainage pipes in town were piped that way to drain out, whoops. And so that's been filled up, and it's not a simple solution to put a larger pipe and put more capacity in there. But it's not a matter of whether, but when.
Well, that drain I was talking about is a brand new drain. They put that in when the train tracks went through. That's not a new catch
That's
basin.
V-Trans though.
What's that?
That was a V-Trans project, that wasn't the
I don't care
town.
whose issue it is. The problem
I guess
falls back to
The question
us
is,
as individuals and residents and business owners.
looking at VHB's plan, and I think we need to ask VHB how it's supposed to flow.
I asked them for their modeling,
Yeah.
haven't gotten it yet.
So, as an interim, we looked at, and are you saying kind of like putting a speed bump there that would keep the water in the road?
So I have a question about that, because when you put that speed bump in, that water is now gonna go to the next drain, which is where I'm at. And when that drain overflows, it backs up the 2 storm drains in my parking lot, and still has water going through my parking lot.
We keep the speed bump going all the way by to the next sidewalk, beyond you. That would be.
I'm talking about my entrance.
I'm talking about your
Because
entrance.
you went across
So-
the,
Actually, my property.
I understand that. You're talking about the northern entrance.
I'm confused, by the way.
Yeah. This is between father and son.
Okay?
Oh, I understand.
It's
I understand.
paying for him to plow, it's paying for this town to probably
Yep.
plow, okay? But 6 inches of water or 2 feet of water in the basement of the train station, not helping me any. And putting water through his front door
Oh,
out
I
in the
agree.
shop is not helping his situation either. And all we're gonna do is channel more water to the underpass, and it's not gonna help the people who,
It's not gonna help the police station or the fire department.
yeah, or the people who live the other side of the underpass.
There is nothing we can do in the short order that's gonna fix
We
it.
understand that.
So, just so we kind of clear set this.
Yeah.
We understand that.
We're looking for solving, not flooding your property. We're looking for ensuring we have emergency services to the people on the backside, which right now we have everything except for a ladder truck. And so, and we want to be able to get a ladder truck there because there are some larger condominiums and commercial buildings there. Okay? And so we still have to work where's the water flowing? Is there a way that, I mean, that's a long-term solution. I think we kind of.
Is there a way across McIntyre Lane to get to Seymour Street?
That's what they were just talking about.
That's what we're talking
Yeah.
about.
Cutting through.
If you're to the south side of our old building there, actually lived up on the second
So
story of the.
if I choose to put this, this speed bump berm, whatever we wanna call it, between, the end of the sidewalk south of the train station, do I have the board's permission for that? Because I think a small piece of that is town property.
Actually,
The town-
part of it's railroad property, but do what, I think a property owner should be able to do what they can do, that they want to do for themselves to prevent damage. I don't see a problem for the town. I know you're not going to build something that's going to obstruct vehicles too much. But,
I'd like to hear from Emily on that, though. I think Emily talked about it.
We often do that for property owners, if it's a need to.
I would be happy to have a discussion with you about it.
Okay, fair enough. I still want to dye test your gutter out back too, to see where that's tied in, because I think that's part of the issue.
I don't think
I
Steve,
mean,
I
we've
don't
not
think
got,
Steve's
do
happy.
we have any plans of what V-Trans fitted there when?
That's what we're talking about. We just.
Right.
I have the plans, I don't have the modeling. I don't have the hydraulic modeling that they should have done when they're tying into a stormwater system, to see what sort of year, or what sort of storm event they designed it for.
I think within that same situation, which is, falls back to him again, is the water that came out of the road east of their property in the triangle. Because I think that's all part of that same problem.
So my septic line, I'm asking the board in the town to show me a permit. Hopefully everybody's seen the pictures of where County Tire got a permit to drill through a storm drain all the way across to in front of Greg's.
Did you find the permit?
Hell no.
I didn't find it in land records.
Okay, then I guess we didn't do it.
Then I guess we didn't do it.
There's no way in the world we're
Well-
gonna dig from County Tire to the front of Greg's, in the middle of the night and put a new sewer drain in without the town knowing about it. So.
Absolutely no
we-
way.
We didn't do that.
what does a sewer line to Greg's have to do with this?
It
So in the
cuts
first
through
storm-
our stormwater line on Seymour Street.
When was the stormwater put in on that? Is that like way?
When they did the underpass over.
Well, some of it.
So in the early 90s, T.Y. Lin did the new underpass. They put 4 storm drains in the bottom, not just 2, 4. And they put a bunch of storm drains up on the high side and both sides. There's a lot of storm drains around there. The problem is that the capacity to discharge it isn't there. And, you know, they just rebuilt the underpass, mainly dealing with the walls and the, you know, the width of it and so forth. But they went into the drainage structures that were there. And the 36-inch RCP pipe. And they dealt with the grades that were there. So, anyway, that's all in the archives. I explained that to Kathleen earlier. People want to look at the T.Y. Lin plans from the early 90s, they can, but
Did you read that again when you were archiving everything?
I did unfold them and look at them. Anyway, that's my memory of what was done. I don't think they really changed the underground pipes then.
So Emily has a pretty strong background in stormwater. So what would be the plan going forward? What do we as a town do to
I
solve it?
think one of the suggestions would be to decrease the impervious on Seymour Street from the intersection up here. We could easily do some stormwater treatment systems, make retention along the street so that it's not just going through the system, but it's, but again, like, you don't design those for 1,000-year storms. You don't design anything for 1,000-year storms. So if that's the rain event that we're having flooding issues with, I don't know how to necessarily solve that problem.
How many
other than
inches
to
was the
find-
rainfall?
What's that?
How many inches was this rainfall on July 13th?
It sort of depends on the reports, but Jeremy, at the wastewater plant, you said 2.5 you got, I feel like?
It was between 2.5 and 3.
Yeah, and
In
so
9.5
then,
minutes.
and people on High Street recorded 3.5.
Yeah.
So it was just, that does track like a 1,000-year storm in that, even up to a 2-hour period, that much rain is a 1,000-year storm.
So that's two 1,000-year storms back to back.
I mean, it's not, yeah, that's the problem with calling it a 1,000-year storm.
Well, that's
It's a
the problem
tenth,
with calling it a
it's a
1,000-year
tenth of
storm.
a percent of a likelihood of it reoccurring in an annual basis. Doesn't mean that it won't happen tomorrow, weather doesn't look like it will, though, but.
We all know now you have to plan for a 10,000-year storm, 1,000-year storm.
But you
Happen annually,
can't,
it
you
seems like.
can't design infrastructure for that because you have to have isolation distances and things between your different components. So like, all of our roads and bridges would be absolutely enormous. by
Well,
then.
I understand that, okay, but this is kind of a twofold thing. Yes, are we getting more rain than we ever have? There's no doubt about that, okay? But we also, with the development of this train underpass, we also channeled water that was never went and never had to go to those storm drains, now has to go to those storm drains, because there's no other place for it to go, except in my basement, by the way. So, I mean,
Is that the
when I
biggest
get
change?
12 to 3 feet of water in the basement train station, not a good thing.
Has the rail project significantly changed the stormwater flow in that area?
Structurally, I think it's the biggest change, but it's hard to say because the frequency and the amount of precipitation hadn't been seen before that either, so.
Well, whenever they got a storm at Fire Nice before that was done, that corner would always flood, but it would dissipate fairly quickly into the rail bed and never hit the system. Always. And that happened for many years.
Yeah, and it's too bad in hindsight that with that big storm drain tunnel that the railroad tunnel
Yeah.
built down to below the falls, that the town stormwater couldn't get into it. But that's hindsight. We have to deal with what we can do now. And it's enlarging the capacity through there is, there's a huge number of pipes in that old wastewater treatment plant site, a sludge tank, there's all kinds of issues with trying to increase the capacity of that.
Capacity down, it's really just getting it out of the underpass is because of the elevations. That's the biggest challenge. Because that pipe is almost flat running from the underpass to the top of the hill.
So
So
are you
you
saying
can't-
that if you got into that 12-foot deep basin by increasing the grade from the 4 catch basins at the bottom of the underpass into that 12-foot deep one, that would help?
We can't.
You would have to increase
dig.
the depth of the 12-foot one.
Yeah, you can only go to the lower invert of that, but if one part is flat and then it goes down to 12 feet, can't you increase the slope and help? I don't know. It's an engineering issue.
The
and-
line is coming into the bottom of the 12-foot, right?
Yeah.
Because, so you have the underpass here, and you have a 12-foot drain over here, this one's 5, and she's basically saying it's almost a straight line between the two, coming into the bottom of a 12-foot structure. So in order to increase the size, increase the capacity, increase the flow, you would have to lower that 12-foot to get a better slope, get a bigger pipe,
Right,
increase
that's what I'm
the
saying.
But I don't think that's where it's backing up. I think it's backing
Backing
up
up in the-
under the underpass because those structures are not
What is the
adequately
outflow
sized.
size on the structures at the bottom of the?
36 inch.
36.
That entire trunk line is 36 inch.
And
it's
your
all at the
12-foot,
bottom of the structures.
Your 12-foot structure doesn't have any capacity because you already got a straight line between your 5-foot and your 12-foot.
Doesn't matter how many catch basins you have, if it's 36 inches and it's flat and that's it, it's filled up, that's it.
Yeah.
Done. So,
I think it would help to have a model of this in a future meeting.
Well, I don't think it's anything we're gonna solve tonight, and I think it might be worth, if you think there's funding available, to get an engineer to take a look at it and see if they can make a recommendation on what possibilities there are for this. I mean, that I think that would be our next step, right?
Yeah, I think that's the starting point.
Is to have an engineer look at it and
I
say.
mean, I guess I reached out to VHB to get their hydraulic modeling. And so that's a starting point too, just to see how developed they went with their hydraulic modeling. We might already have a lot of the data, I don't know. So,
Can I assume those two 36-inch pipes go to the old sewer plant? Is that, I mean, can they discharge to the river somewhere?
they don't go to the sewer plant, but they discharge down there
River.
to the river, yes.
Oh, all right. So, I mean, not to sound ridiculous, but the simple answer would be to have more than 2 lines in there or whatever.
That's where you
That
get
doesn't make it
into,
simple, but it,
that's where you get into isolation issues, because we have water, we have sewer, we have gas, all of that has to have enough isolation between lines, and if you're enlarging the storm, there's all, in that 12-foot structure at the top of the hill, there's 5 pipes coming in there. So it gets hard, and then to double the pipes, you're like tripling the size of the structure to be able to get
or
your
you
radiuses.
go below what's already there and just go deeper. It also allows more storage, quote unquote. The deeper you go, the more storage you got, the more it costs.
So, we're not
You
gonna
may-
engineer
you
this
may
tonight.
also- yeah.
You know, the whole area that comes in, what Emily's saying, and what young Steve is saying, that water is surged out of the manhole in front of the Asian food place in large storms, you know, cloudbursts, for
And that's up-
many
up
years.
the street.
So the whole system needs to be engineered together long-term. But short-term, I think having another way for emergency services to get across is the best thing we can do. And
Short term, I'd also like to know how we're gonna fix my septic issue.
Did anything change?
We don't have an issue actually, by the way.
We don't have an issue, by the way, because everything flows fine. But it's going through your stormwater drain, which slows flow, by the way.
I
so
don't understand
your
the pipe
sanitary
is-
sewer is in the storm
Yeah.
drain?
Somebody cut a section out and ran the pipe through it and put a patch over the top of it.
Jeez.
Whoa.
Joe Bach? Who do you think did that? Huh. I mean, he was the person who owned before Steve.
I was gonna ask you, who
Well,
owned
I-
the place before them?
Just going back to what I said, I don't think we're gonna solve any of it tonight, and I would ask Emily to just, you know, engage an engineer to take a look and,
They did that already.
I hired an engineer. Otter Creek designed a new service line for them, but they don't want to.
Well, that new service line goes across 5 of my bays, through another storm drain and across some property next to me.
His father's property.
Correct, my father's property. But why
He
would we
said
wanna
he
go,
wouldn't be able to
why
get
would
it.
we
so,
wanna
and
go
we've already had,
south through another
that's an
storm
already
drain?
engineered,
Yeah, I have an existing plan.
and that's the only option there.
No,
It's the most logical option, because otherwise you have the
Of course, the
stormwater.
town wanted us to pay for
Okay,
it. too, by the way.
I'm sorry, can I just hear from Emily right now, please?
The way our ordinance is written, the property owner owns the service from where it leaves the house until it enters our system.
Right.
Which in this situation is across both of the little legs of the triangle, under the triangle to the far corner where it's the Elm Street intersection. And at the sidewalk, on their property side, is where it bisects our stormwater. So elevation-wise, it doesn't work to run it that way to join sewer, which is on the far side. There is a sewer manhole further south, that Otter Creek designed it to go into, but they were unwilling to do that because it would go across the adjacent property owner, and Steve said that he wouldn't be able to get an easement from that property owner.
Okay.
That's where we left it.
Can we arrange a walkthrough?
Yeah.
For anybody on, I'm sure you would volunteer that, but I'd love to get a walkthrough.
sure.
It still sounds magical to me.
Did we all have the photos of,
I got them,
I
yeah.
have them, yeah.
Yeah, I see water, but,
did you see the septic?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so, when you hear back from PHB and have something, more, maybe we put it back on the agenda and you can brief the board on how you're going.
Yeah.
And in the interim, I'm going to, issue from the hydraulics, the emergency services. I'm gonna reach out to the state and to Vermont Rail, if they're in support of it. And I'd like to turn it over to staff to work with whatever the permitting and that process. But I'll see if I can get a commitment to support it before we bog you down with that.
Sounds good.
Brian, where exactly did you have in mind from McIntyre Lane coming across over
It
the
would be just south of
Danforth?
Danforth. It's on the whoever owns the property there, the old grain building.
Yeah, yeah.
It's listed as Danforth is listed as Danforth on the ground list.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
The whole property now?
That back building and the front one, both.
Okay. Yeah. So we'd have to get permission from
Well,
them.
that's the most logical place. I'm sure the Danforths would be happy to get permission. Or the management team.
And before we get property owners involved in everything, I need to make sure that the state and Vermont knows.
So, Emily, are you thinking that the town will, if we agree to put some kind of a berm or a speed bump or whatever between
Both openings.
the present island and the openings on both ends?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'd like to meet and talk about that, so
Okay.
in the near future,
Okay.
before the next rainstorm.
But not the one we're getting tomorrow.
We'll have
No
that.
time.
Okay.
Models and diagrams. This is getting too complicated.
You good?
Thank you. Danielle isn't here, but Rachel Lee Cummings is here.
Did-
Danielle wasn't able to make it tonight.
You're working, I told you you were working ahead.
Thank you for listening to us.
Hey, guys.
I have the hardest time keeping my wife posted. We'll be, we're all willing to help you on this. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Hi.
Hey.
Thanks. Good, how are you? Nice to see you all. Thanks for having us. I prepared some remarks to read so I could be efficient with time, if that's all right. So I'll introduce myself and then have my colleague introduce herself. I'm Rachel Cummings, or actually I'm now Rachel Lee. I changed my name, went back to my maiden name. And I'm the Executive Director of the Counseling Service. I've been there a little over 5 years. And to my left is...
I'm Carolyn Gillis. I coordinate the adult outpatient and substance use disorder teams at CSAC.
So, good evening, and I wanted to come and just tell you how incredibly grateful we are to the town of Middlebury for the funds we received last year and again this year. Tonight, I wanted to share how we've utilized these funds to support our substance use services at CSAC. Last year, when we spoke with former Chief Hanley, we proposed using the funds for training and education, a crucial investment in our community's well-being. Although substance use services are a small part of our overall CSAC operations compared to our mental health and developmental services programs, we recognize their vital importance. We strive to ensure that these services are available and easily accessible for individuals when they are ready and want to engage in treatment. Our mission is to provide quality, individualized outpatient assessment and treatment to individuals and families struggling with alcohol and drug use, as well as other addictive disorders. We understand that these disorders develop over time and affect individuals' physical, mental, and spiritual states. Our holistic treatment approach incorporates the best of mental health and addiction recovery strategies, some of which you have helped fund. We see the community as a crucial resource in recovery and encourage clients to design their own support networks, utilizing local resources such as the Turning Point Center of Addison County. Our adult substance use treatment options are diverse because we believe no single treatment is appropriate for all individuals. We work to match treatment services to each person's particular problems and needs, offering office-based, individual, group, and family therapy services. We have a team currently made up of 4 staff, 2 who are dually licensed, and Carolyn can go into a little more of that detail. At CSAC, our goal is to expand the capacity of our dually licensed mental health and substance use clinicians. We believe that having clinicians who are dually licensed to support both substance use and mental health is critical to effective treatment and engagement. So last year, we used funds to provide membership to something called the Association for Addiction Professionals, which is the go-to organization for training and resources, including providing continuing educational credits, CEUs, which is a critical step in increasing our staff's competency in co-occurring disorders. Money was also used to support staff development. We have so for now, we have 2 additional staff members who are actively working toward becoming licensed alcohol and drug abuse counselors. We anticipate an additional staff member will be dually licensed by the end of 2024, with more anticipated thanks to your support in 2025. Our goal is to ensure that our entire mental health outpatient team is also dually licensed to provide substance use treatment. Training and education, we sent a 3rd clinician to a multi-day training to receive CEUs, which are required to maintain their LADC, and this clinician also brought back their learnings to support, to help with the rest of the team and to provide shared learning with the rest of our team. Additionally, we purchased study resources for folks to be able to get credentialed. These resources provide preparation and a pathway for a fast-track licensing process, which helps achieve our goal of having all our adult outpatient team members be dually licensed. It's also a nice balance to have a fast track to licensing for staff who are juggling busy work schedules in their personal lives. So they're doing this while they continue to work. So with our next round of funds, for which, again, we are incredibly grateful, we intend to continue expanding the capacity of our dually licensed staff. For our adult outpatient, our adult outpatient team has 8 staff members, and our goal is to offer all of them the opportunity to become dually licensed. So by the end of this process, we should have 10 dually licensed clinicians. This round of funding will allow all these staff members to have the NAADAC membership so they can begin the training process to take the exam. And additionally, we intend to use approximately $4,500 to provide Middlebury money stipends to community members who participate in a class we offer called Power of Voice and Choice, which we offer in the community, most recently at the Charter House. CSAC began offering Power of Voice and Choice at the tail end of the pandemic as part of our goal to create more low-barrier options for people to reduce isolation, build a sense of belonging, and potentially engage with services. We recognizing that accessing CSAC services in our buildings can be challenging for some, and we've worked hard to create more welcoming and non-threatening options. The Power of Voice and Choice series effectively engages people in the community, teaching valuable skills and fostering meaningful connections. Most recently, our team worked collaboratively with the Turning Point Center and Charter House to plan the project and graduated 12 participants. The goals of the Citizen Project include understanding your rights as a community member and developing the skills needed to exercise those rights, examining your responsibilities and goals as a community member and identifying ways to better fulfill them, enhancing your knowledge of community resources and your ability to access them, developing supportive and stable relationships based on trust and shared interests, helping to identify possibilities for the development of meaningful roles in the community. And finally, any remaining funds will be used to support our intern street outreach partnership with Charter House. We have several interns who do street outreach on foot around the town and who use a Charter House van to visit folks staying in local motels. People both staying at Charter House in the motels or on the street can book time with a CSAC intern without having to come into our office, again, trying to expand our low barrier options. And additionally, one of our interns, Amelia, will be starting a substance use disorder group at Charter House for guests. Attendance is free and you don't need to be a CSAC client to attend. So again, your support has been pivotal, goodness, I'm messing up my words here, in helping us provide these essential services in our community. Thank you for your continued trust and investment in our mission. And I believe that together we are making a significant difference for lives of many people in our community. So I'd love to take questions, and I'd love to have Carolyn speak to, you know, sort of more of the details of what might be on your mind.
I just want to make sure that the reporting requirements for this aren't onerous or much on top of what you do otherwise, and that we're not putting too many strings on the money that comes to you.
I appreciate that. I think it's fairly easy. I appreciate the support you've provided, Kathleen. We need to give you a report within 30 days of signing the MOU, and then an additional report, I think, within
180 days.
180 days. So that feels very doable, and I appreciate that, because one of our, I think, greatest challenges for people doing the work is that administrative burden. I think Carolyn could speak to what that looks like and what that means, and our ability to be in front with people versus sort of like behind a computer screen documenting,
Of course.
right? So really appreciate that sentiment.
Yeah,
Thank you.
if there is a better set of things that you're already doing that indicate that you're spending our money well, I mean, you can just provide to the town, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, communicate that to us, and we'll see if that
All right.
is adequate.
Thanks. We appreciate that. Is there anything you wanted to say?
I have a thing or two I could say.
Yeah. Go for it.
I received my clinical training about 20 years ago, and so much has changed since then. And what we've come to understand about addiction and trauma and neuroscience has changed so much. But the only way that we as substance use disorder clinicians can know what those advances are through continuing education. So I can't emphasize enough how important this has been. And the NADAC memberships have given my team access to thousands of hours of online webinars, and some of the topics that we've been able to study are ADHD and addiction, trauma-informed relapse prevention, the relationship between trauma and addiction, the science of shame. You can't treat addiction without talking about shame, polyvagal theory, addiction as a relational disorder, the neuroscience of addiction and trauma. Process addictions, where our team is learning more about how do you apply these addiction recovery methods to non-substance addictions like binge eating, gambling, workaholism, binge watching Netflix, sex addiction, pornography. So that's been really helpful. And I can say that many of our clients, they love it when their therapist goes to a training, because we're thinking about them when we're sitting in the training, and how can I take this knowledge and apply it to these very real individuals who live in our community. And so, the ADHD and addiction, that's the most recent training I went to, and it was amazing, because that next week, so many of my clients that I work with, I'm like, I was thinking of you, and this is how we can apply it to the work that you're doing. And so we can take that psychoeducation that we're learning, and we share it with each other, the other staff at CSAC, but most importantly, we share it directly with the clients that we're serving. And it has been so concretely useful. So thank you so much. My team feels very invested in by the community. Like this work matters, and we want to support you to have the most up-to-date knowledge of what is understood about not just addiction, because addiction doesn't occur just by itself. It is always in relation to trauma and stuff that's going on in the brains, and we need to know what that stuff is. And these funds are really helping us know what we need to know to do the work that we're doing. So thank you.
Let's get them the money.
Wow. Give them more after that.
Isn't she awesome?
Thank you. I admire your enthusiasm for a topic that I have no idea how to work in or understand. So thank you for what you all do.
One other quick question. Is there any evidence that like GLP-1 drugs are useful for the kind of addiction that you guys deal with? The Ozempic type
I know there's
curbing
some
your
like
appetites.
emerging, I think it is, I don't know. It's so new.
That's fine.
I think what I've read is there's some like emerging data,
Some
but,
yes maybes.
that might help with things like OCD, but again, it feels so new that it's
Sure.
hard to really,
Very good.
yeah,
Thanks.
we won't go there, yeah.
I'll move to authorize a memorandum of understanding between the town of Middlebury and the counseling service, the counseling service of Addison County, which will transfer $10,993.91 in national opioid settlement funds provided to the town to CSAC.
Second?
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'll also move to authorize the memorandum of understanding between the town of Middlebury and Turning Point Center, Addison County, which will transfer the same amount, $10,993.91, in national opioid settlement funds provided to the town to the Turning Point Center.
Second.
Questions or comments on that? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Can I leave you with one more thing? So, bringing back bocce, this is our third year post-pandemic. It is so much fun. I'll leave this with Kathleen, but I hope that you all consider coming. What we really focus on is building opportunities for connection, building community, building cohesion, and bocce does that with just a lot of laughter and fun. So, please consider coming.
What's the date?
It is September 14th.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'll leave it with Kathleen.
The church
Thank
puts
you so
together a
much.
team, Andy.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, they do. A very competitive
Thank you for being
team.
here. Thank you for the work that you do.
Okay, brief update, I guess, on the draft development. Come on, Lee.
Try to bring the CSAC's infectious enthusiasm to this conversation.
Yeah, let's see it.
I'll do my best. Back to follow. Thank you. You want me to kick off? Kathleen, do you want to drive?
Sure, go ahead.
Two main topics on the agenda. One, road naming. I think Beth is still waiting on me for some things. So that is that one is the if any parenthetical is none right now.
We have our deepest sympathy in trying to navigate between the E-Common Board and the Postal Service, which takes a degree of independence from what towns do as to what address they want to give people.
The condolences should be directed at Beth. She's the one who's managing all that. We have a bit of an unintended consequence, I think, from the TND that E911 is
garage. Front door or garage?
Correct. And so we've created this activated streetscape with rear entrances, and now the state is wanting to number on the alley roads. And so now we've gotten what we were thinking of driveways now need to be named alleys in order to have the address be on driveway alleyways. So we're working through it. I don't think.
It's only important that it get resolved before you sell a unit, because changing someone's address afterwards is hell.
Yes. Yep. We will do it well in advance of that. Just not tonight. So that's the update on that one. I think we'll get there. That isn't quite life or death or a design issue or anything. It's life or death in that the ambulance needs to find the home. So that's obviously priority number one. Number two is the development agreement, and this, Kathleen, we can tag team, I think. Just as a reminder, right, we have a couple things. So the DRB has given its final approval. We don't have the memo yet, so we'll see that from Jen in a few weeks, I think. But great process. The DRB final took 2 meetings, and they were kind enough to schedule a special session continuation. So we finalized that last Monday night. One of the conditions will be the completion of a development agreement. I think you all have seen a couple versions of this. We haven't made any substantive tweaks. The last conversation we had was about performance bond that we kind of came to general terms on last time. You sent me home with the task of writing that draft agreement. We did, and that was submitted to you. A couple technical things we can go over on that, but I think we were generally there on the terms. And then the other provisions that really are probably for open review for you all from the development agreement are still outstanding. I don't think we are really in difference of opinion on any of the substantive ones, other than just nailing down the final cost sharing items.
Yep.
Jen has a review, I think, of some of the phasing pieces that's in here, and that is the large component.
to note that one of the items is the construction of the sidewalk, which I believe one of the conditions of the DRB approval is that it is constructed by the town by September 1st, 2026, before that school year. And I discussed with Emily this afternoon, and we think we can make that work. We're just waiting to see if we get funding through that bike ped grant that we applied for, and have other sources of potential funding if that doesn't work out. But we think we can make that time work. And so that will be incorporated into the hopefully final draft of the development agreement you see.
So you're building a lot of sidewalks within your project to town standards, but the one that's off-site on Valley View, Emily wants to use dollar contribution to match and leverage funds for the butt-off acres thing. If we can get V-Trans to do anything in this decade, forgive me, you know, that will work out. And otherwise, the town will build the sidewalk by the time school children are there. That's the, I think that was the DRB's concern.
Yep,
When
yep.
school children are there, there's a sidewalk. Okay.
I have a quick question. In the, in the ESCO agreement, I think it's in the ESCO agreement, in the bottom of page 1, where it says developer will, at its own expense, complete the following improvements in connection with its development. Why is septic NA?
I think we did it that way. We're not building an on-site septic treatment, mound or anything like that. It's part of the utilities.
Okay.
We'll be doing the.
Okay, got it.
You know,
I
they
knew there
forgot
was.
sidewalks, though, in that list.
I'm sorry?
You know, the list of things that, I found the colored exhibit that they provided that was in our last packet. It shows the roads and everything in it that's gonna come to the town.
Yep.
As the better exhibit, rather than trying to list particular things in this, of what the town is to take over. They're gonna complete everything within that yellow colored area, and the town agrees to take it over if it's built to town standards. That is a much better thing than this list, in my opinion.
So when you have septic listed here, just to be 100% clear, that's if you were having an on-site treatment and you're considering all the sewer lines, wastewater lines under the utilities. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think there's any mystery or disagreement on what is entailed. The best way of indicating it we can come up with if we want to use that attachment.
Picture's worth 1,000 words.
I'm good with it. Yeah. We'll come up. We can do another turn. So we'll do a construction cost estimate. Right. The statement of work, the point of the cost estimate is to calculate the percentage that we're putting in escrow, right? So we're sort of understanding the actual parameters of the work and then attaching a cost estimate to it for the purpose of calculating what's actually going into escrow. So we would definitely do the cost estimate because that's the crucial part of calculating the number and understanding the scope.
But you're still doing the 10% that we talked about last time.
Yep, that's the proposal. Yep. It is more, the only other thing I'll notice to state about this is since we're thinking of doing this in phasing, we sort of, the way we drafted this one rather than, the way we just decided to do it at first is to contemplate this one escrow agreement, you know, sort of using sequenced phasing, and we'll baking that deposit into the escrow agreement when we start it. I think most towns on a phased development do one of these per phase. Might be simpler, totally fine with it. Still only wanted to give you one template of the language. I think we might prefer that, but for town council's review, I don't think it matters. It's not going to matter from a drafting perspective. I think that kind of goes to Kathleen, your council, and the select board's priority on that. Either is fine with us. It might clean it up. Yeah.
I hope that the approval you're getting from the DRB is for the whole project, and the rest of this, the escrow adjustments and so forth, are going to happen administratively, so they're appeal proof.
Yeah, the only condition in the DRB's decision is my understanding from our conversations, and we don't have that memo, that decision yet, so I can't speak for the DRB, but will be that we collectively execute a development agreement. And these are the items in the development agreement in front of us, part of which is this escrow agreement. So the DRB isn't diving into the terms of these, but we do have to come to a decision on this before we can pull our first permit. And that becomes the time crunch we're under as we try to do that this fall.
Because condition number one of the, what we have is the latest version of the development agreement, is condition for additional permits. Your obligations under this are contingent upon your receipt of all permits required for the construction of the project. So they need to permit the whole thing and then handle the rest administratively, including minor changes or whatever, so that you get beyond that, and this paragraph doesn't operate to negate our security for the project.
And I think what we'll do, and I'm noticing that now, thanks for bringing up that sort of recital number 4 there, really when it's out should reference the final plat, the actual worded condition of this. These were the conditions coming out of preliminary when we collectively started discussing this. I think that's a worthwhile update when that memo comes out. If I were to make a proposal tonight, it would be, if we're generally in agreement on the terms here, it would be the select board authorizing Kathleen, once we have some sort of non-material cleanup to it. If that is something you want to bring back to the select board, that's fine. But that would put it in that category of a non-material change, is that we articulate exactly what the condition is from the final plat approval when we get Jen's written decision.
It's a little awkward we don't want to do a thing that works against what the DRB or approval is. I don't like the notion that we're holding you up by virtue of whether our town attorney's not getting at this for a month or.
So we need the DRB decision to move forward
Yeah.
with confidence. Yeah. So we'll get the DRB decision. We'll get this to you by August 13th. Hopefully, and that shouldn't hold you up too much.
No.
Okay.
No.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, if we're staying on track here, we're turning around to the zoning office, and by the middle to end of September, we're applying for a zoning permit on the first phasing. So that will be a quick turnaround then, but it's as long as we're sort of focused in August and September, we're okay.
So we are not approving anything tonight because we don't have the DRB's final decision? Okay. I'm good with that.
And we'll incorporate the timing of the sidewalk into the draft and other things mentioned here.
Mm-hmm. Great.
You gotta wait 30 days.
As I have with everybody, including you all, I think Jen has 45 days
45.
in the ordinance, but I have, every week counts at this point. So we are, I think we're all pulling the same oar in a really effective way. So I appreciate that about the DRB's work and all of yours.
Great.
Yeah.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Questions or updates you want from me otherwise?
I think we'll be ready to hopefully bless off on this at the next meeting.
Okay. We will, Kathleen and I will keep an eye on the calendar on that. Yeah.
Great.
Great. Thank you all.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks for trekking down here again.
Hey, my pleasure. My wife asked tonight how often I was going to keep coming down. I said, well, I'll be more often just during the day. Hopefully fewer 7 o'clock meetings.
Good.
And more.
So, reading in the DRB minutes that there's been 30 planning meetings, that's a lot.
And that predates this project and us, right? That was the work that the Planning Commission and Jen did to get the zoning ordinance.
You haven't come down here 30 times.
No, I think I've come before you now 7 or 8.
Okay.
DRB.
It was a little shocking.
6 to 7. No, I was trying to highlight some of the work that the town had already done to get to a point where a project like this could even be considered by a developer. And that took a lot of work in the master plan and the new regs. So,
Great.
No, sorry if it sounded like I was trying to take credit for that many visits. I can't.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
So it looks like we have Jeremy and Bob.
Breaker boys.
Breaker.
That's something we'd normally associate them with.
So is there any way we can pump some storm water into that old tank sitting on the property there?
I've
in
got
front of
2
the police-
months left, so I think it's a great idea. No, we can't. So, we've had a number of breaker failures. We've used our last spare one. We've been working with Peck Electric coming in. He's been the guy that we've been very familiar with. He has, you build a relationship with an electrical person in town to come in for any problems that we've had. And most recent one was probably about a month ago where he had to do some work on the 250 that we had.
Yeah, 3 weeks or a month ago, we tried swapping out some parts off of some older broken breakers that we had, and we were able to cobble something together to get it to work.
And it's still working, but even since that time, we've had it trip out maybe 5 times.
5
This
to
is just
6.
on one of the small 250 breakers.
Yep.
So probably about back in March was when we had them in, when we had to swap out one of
Yes.
the other ones. And then we realized how short we were on breakers. We had talked to Peck. We did a look over of the breakers that we had to make sure that, we were going to have them on shelf. And then that was when we found out that, one, they're very expensive, and two, the delay time is a long period. So we had Dave or Glenn get in touch with the manufacturer of the breakers, find out the cost. We got a proposal. I put 25,000 in operating, and I put 15 in biosolids, because the breakers run in different parts of the facility, so that's how I broke the money out. So I was looking for an emergency purchase just to get the ball rolling, to get it to the breakers ordered, because even on the proposal Pat gave us, it was when would they come? And I think he actually quoted on the bottom of it saying, we have no idea.
Yeah, the supplier said, honestly, we have
So-
no idea.
So these breakers, whether we went to Peck, Adams, or to Benoit, they would all come from the same place. They have to manufacture these breakers. So we wanted to stay with Peck, and then when we spoke to Bill, he said, pump your brakes for a moment. So we did. Jeremy got in touch with Peck. He held off on that.
Yep.
And then we reached out to Adams and also to
Benoit. Yep.
But we haven't heard back from Adams yet, and Benoit said they'd have to do a trip.
Benoit would have to come out and
Come
try
in,
to do a site visit and
do a whole assessment on it. So they're all going to be purchasing these breakers from the same manufacturer in California. So I would still propose that we do an emergency purchase with PAC and then continue in that route, unless you want us to hold off. But the real critical part is that if we do lose a breaker in some of these parts of the equipment, it's going to be an area of the facility that's going to be without power, and then we wouldn't have any options.
You don't just put a penny in there and that is.
We could try that, just like pumping the stormwater into the.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
So, the memo that we have in our packet talks about 33,000 for the treatment plant and 13,000 and some for the biosolids. But then we were handed this, and there was another thing that was in the earlier version of the packet for a really expensive, a $60,000 breaker.
yeah, that we're not pursuing at this time.
Okay.
Because that's a whole engineering project.
Where Square D would actually have to come to the site.
It's the main entrance. Yeah, so the issue is
What's
that,
that?
not to get into the weeds too farther, it's Square D I-line technology. When the plant was built, was like about 2 to 3 years before it was discontinued. So we were right at the tail end of that technology. And so the problem is they're not made anymore for that. You can't get them used anymore for that. And so it becomes a big deal to replace it. And before COVID, you had shorter lead times. But now we look at that, what we call the critical N+1 redundancy, where we got a lead and lag for everything. In the old days, it didn't matter with breakers because you could get them. Now all of a sudden we're doing our assessment at the plant, looking at critical infrastructure and looking at these things, and we grow very concerned especially when we have them repeatedly starting to fail. I mean, I've worked there for a little over 2 years, and we've had 2 of those breakers fail in 2 years.
I've owned
So-
3 houses over 50 years. I've never had a circuit breaker fail. I don't know what you do to them, but I trust you totally. You need to.
You don't run 1,200 amps for your circuit breakers.
No,
do you?
no.
And the other thing is, Fred, these are high technology breakers, right? So they have like GFI sensors, they have arc fault sensors. The breakers that we have now,
I
yeah.
totally accept that. I'm just appalled by the.
They occupy a building.
Are we looking at any of this stuff with the plant upgrade?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And so we're not purchasing things that, we're a little ways
It's
out.
obsolete and thrown out.
Yeah.
Well, here's a funny tip on that, is that we're looking at $40,000 expense. It's a big dollar. These breakers could sit on the shelf and we won't even use them, but if we don't have them on the shelf and we have not, and
It's cheap
an issue-
insurance.
Yeah.
It's cheap insurance.
Yep.
It's really, in the grand scheme of things, is $40,000.
And the worst case scenario is if what we don't use up to the plant upgrade are gonna get sold out to other older plants that have the same technology. Because
There'll be a need for it.
there's plenty of people in the boat that we are.
Yeah.
Ours won't be the last plant to be decommissioned.
Yeah.
I'll move to approve the purchase order request by Public Works for the emergency purchase of replacement breakers at the wastewater treatment facility. Do we need to give a total, or is that good?
$33,390 and $13,488.
Thank you.
Second.
Questions or comments? Okay. You guys would be a good source for discussion with our policy committee, because you're one of the prime ones. So everything you come to us for is
Hat in hand.
sole source.
It's
So
a lot of specialty stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Understanding that is going to be important. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Fantastic.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
guys.
much.
Don't hold on that $60,000.
No, yeah, we're not touching that.
So, Bob, are you retiring?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We didn't know that.
You hadn't heard that?
No, I hadn't heard that.
He's modest,
You
he's
retired.
modest about it, but he shouldn't be.
Jeez, this is too much turnover here. This is just too much.
You're not okay?
No, I'm not okay.
But we are fortunate that Jeremy, who has been working for us for 2 years, will be
Yeah.
our next wastewater superintendent.
All right.
Well, that was an easy hiring process.
You just made Dan feel a whole lot better,
Yeah,
Jeremy.
'cause
You just need some gray in your hair.
What's that? I signed it this afternoon. Yes, I just signed the paperwork this afternoon.
Oh.
So.
Fantastic.
Congratulations, Jeremy.
sometimes
and
it's
thank you, Bob.
good enough to know what's going on.
Thank you
Thanks so
both
much,
for the
Bob.
work.
Thanks, guys.
She sure is. On Zoom.
We've had a lot of turnover.
Hi, Judith.
Judith, we cannot hear you.
Hmm?
You couldn't see them coming?
Oh, no, I saw.
It's coming in.
For the numbers.
Okay, good. Yes. Judith, do you want to outline your proposal for the board? Okay, do you want me to start off, Judith?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay, so in your packet, you have Judith Harris's proposal for Harris & Harris to be our clerk of the work for the Ilsley Library project. Judith has worked for the town for several projects in this capacity, and so she comes highly recommended. And will be continuing as on the project, as she has been involved on that and is involved with it daily. So Judith, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't think so. It was an interesting day today, I'll say that.
Oh, why be it, Judith?
What's that?
Wait, what was interesting about today?
So you may have seen when you came in that there's some barricaded work right beside the library, and that is because if you look closely, some of the marble veneer slabs have become separated from the supporting structure. So Judith spent the day working with ReArch to have them come down here for an inspection and make a plan to stabilize them until they can be removed. Is that a very condensed version of what happened, Judith?
That is a good shortened version, yes. I think that the library is showing itself to be an old gal that needs help.
Wow.
Conditions that we saw a year ago that were reported by REARC when they began their investigations of the building, compared to the photographs that we're seeing today, to show substantial deterioration and separation of some of those marble panels from the stairwell shaft as you see it when you go out the side door, if you do that this evening, to the point where they could come loose. It appears that they were not assembled the way the drawings show in 1977, but in fact it's a stud wall with plywood and pins to hold the heavy marble panels on, and those are rusting because the water's getting behind them.
Sure.
So I asked Royce if she would cordon off the area, not wanting the town to be sued. She did that, and superintendent from REARC's maintenance department came by on an emergency basis, looked at it, and said, yes, it's in tough shape. It is not safe, we need to stabilize it. So you will see work happening there tomorrow, as early as tomorrow, for a couple of days. It will not be pretty in that there will be scaffolding and hopefully left in the framework of 2x4s that are essentially holding those bottom panels in place until spring, when that addition comes down. So that's what's happening today, tomorrow, the next day, other than the usual design work.
So it looks like the addition is taking itself down.
It is. It's not waiting.
We can save some money there.
Well, is all this rain has to do something with it?
Maybe.
Sure, it's annoying.
All the rain that we are getting, is that has something to do with it?
Yes, there's no question. As Dan Werner and I looked at this some time ago, must be at least 3 or 4 years, the panels at the top were already cupping, and we had an Excel spreadsheet put together that essentially inventoried all of the buildings in the town's grouping, and those were noted as likely being cupped by moisture getting behind them. When you walk by, what you're looking at are at essentially eye level, and humans don't generally look up unless there's a reason to, but if you do, you'll notice that they have, even over the last month, with the amount of rain that we've had, the water has gotten behind them, and rusted pins that are holding. So it's no longer just cupping, it's detaching that we're dealing with.
Well, I'll move to approve the proposed agreement with Harris & Harris to continue to provide clerk of the work services to the town for the Isley Library renovation and expansion project at an hourly rate of $75 per hour.
Friendly amendment? Could we just say to accept their proposal as proposed? There's a lot more in here. Her services, such as talked about today, and, offering, Steve's help in here. There's a lot more in there than just the 75 per hour that's valuable to the town. I
But
think
what do we do
accept her
differently?
proposal.
This is her proposal.
Yeah.
We just accept
Not
the
just the
proposal.
75, but
Right.
accept the proposal.
Well, I would like to comment on this proposal. This is amazing that she's volunteering her husband, who's an architect, to help work at free.
Yeah.
And if she goes over 32 hours a week, she's not going to get paid.
Yeah.
Let's accept the proposal.
This is unheard of. And this is a job of passion with her, and I appreciate it, Judith.
So to note that all along, Judith has
Yes.
capped her hours at
Yes.
24
Right.
per month and volunteered the remaining hours.
And without her, we wouldn't be here with a library project. We would not be anywhere close, so.
And I would also just remind the board that she was a big part of the rehabilitation of the old wastewater treatment plant so that it was usable for the police department. She was the clerk of the works and also a big part of that whole project.
It was in the town office, right?
Town offices.
Yep.
So are you good with the friendly amendment?
I accept the friendly amendment, but I don't think the motion's been seconded either.
And, I
Second?
was gonna ask if you.
Yeah, all right. Second.
Okay.
Yes.
The motion, and second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Anybody opposed, cut your legs out?
Thank you, Judith.
Yeah.
Thank you, Judith.
Yes.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me join you.
Oh, my goodness.
Yep.
Okay, guess next on the agenda, we've got Mike.
Right. So I'm Mike Roy. I live in Middlebury. I'm on the Energy Committee. I think I know many, but not all of you. I'm hoping that this will be the first of many times that I come before you saying that there is grant money available to help Middlebury decarbonize and electrify and contribute to combating climate change. So we discovered, the Energy Committee discovered through reading the minutes of the Addison County Regional Planning Commission, Energy Commission, that there is money available through the federal government by way of the Public Service Department that to help Middlebury kind of engage in these decarbonization activities. And so we are working with the Department of Public Services to kind of figure out what the scope of work might be that's allowable. And I apologize for showing up somewhat unprepared because we just learned about this last week and we're trying to do our homework and figure out what's going on. What our proposal is basically to think about work around thinking about contractors, thinking about developers, thinking about how workforce development around climate change, and thinking about what needs to happen on the back end for people that want to do this work in their homes, realizing that there's a need for there to be a trained workforce. There needs to be awareness of building codes, both at the local level and at the state level. There needs to be awareness of what are the right techniques to do this, and some sense of just how do we move forward with all of this. So we're talking with the Public Service Department about like what's allowable within this grant proposal, and proposing that we move forward with a proposal through this program, which is really funded by the federal government that the state of Vermont is administering. I apologize that the details of it, I think they're in their packet. The details are not entirely clear because it's pretty fluid right now about what's allowable and what's not. The deadline is such that you all need to say, like, we trust you, we think you're going to do the right thing, go ahead and submit the proposal. In reality, like, what will end up happening is we'll write the proposal. If you end up not liking it and deciding that it's something that you don't want to support, there's a phase 3 months later where you can say, like, no, we actually don't want to sign on the bottom line. One of the questions around this whole process will be, what is the burden on the town? And I guess I should also thank Kathleen for like entertaining this, because I sent this to her at the 11th hour saying, like, can we desperately need to get on your agenda. We're proposing that the town of Middlebury put this forward, and that SEAC, which is the local nonprofit climate organization, will actually administer the grant. And so much of the work of thinking about hiring people, supervising people, accounting for the money, making sure that we're actually making good on the promises that we make in the grant will be borne by SEAC. And so we'll work closely. There will be some amount of work in terms of just making sure that we're accounting for the money, properly, and so I'm not here to say like there will be no work from the town to do this, but SEAC will carry the lion's share of the work, and that we'll have to figure out how much work this will fall on Kathleen and others.
Two quick questions, Mike. Have you gotten decent responses from the public service department?
So it's, like I said, it's very fluid, so like we're contacting them.
Yeah.
We contacted them early in the week to say like,
Okay.
this is the scope of work we'd like to both continue the Navigator program, this Energy Navigator program. Is that allowable? So we're trying to figure out what's allowable, and then we also want to add on this component of thinking about workforce development, thinking about education of existing developers and contractors, and then also trying to think, and understanding what's happening. So this is work that's happening in other parts of the state, at the state level, that's happening regionally, nationally. So part of the proposal is to do a certain amount of research to say like what are best practices that are happening around the world that we could bring to Addison County. And so some of it is a negotiation with them to kind of figure out like what's in scope and what's not in scope. So I would just say like it's a little fluid.
Yeah.
So I wish that I could have brought with you a one-pager that was super crisp.
Yeah.
But that's not where we are.
Questions, and you're waiting for some guidance.
Yeah.
What is the overlap between SEAC and the Energy Committee as far as people involved?
So we have 3 people. So myself, Steve Meyer, and Richard Hopkins are all members of both.
Okay.
SEAC is clearly organized around Addison County. So we've been working on developing relationships with Bristol and Virgins, and then through this mini MERP program, we've developed relationships with about 12 other communities. So our intent and hope is to think about this regionally rather than just about at the level of the town. We may, depending on, if you all say, no, let's not do this, we'll probably like take our toys and go somewhere else.
See if Virgins is interested.
But if you're interested, like we may actually, no, but I actually think it would be useful for you all to say like, yes, we'd like you to pursue this, and then we can be the lead on a regional grant. So then we can go to Virgins and Bristol and others if there's $1 million on the line. If they don't have a plan, they could benefit from this, because I think the outcome of this will be something that will benefit not just Middlebury, it should benefit the entire community. Trying to think, because I think the developers and contractors that work in Middlebury are also working in Bristol and Virgins, and so, yeah.
Understand the time crunch. It's too bad that a grant program that was issued in May only came to our attention this late.
Yes.
That said, just on general principles, one-time grant money might, and I should say as your Energy Committee liaison, the Energy Committee led by Mike Roy has developed through a number of meetings its top 12 projects that have been agreed to, and the board, either it should be an agenda item, or if you can in your own time, look on their Energy Committee section of the town website and see the degree of organization and focus on this. It's not just the SEAC program, but a number of other things, some of which are actual capital projects. And as a general philosophy, if you have one-time money coming in, hiring an employee, what do you do in year 2 if that one-time money runs out? You could use the money to help fund the electric heat pump option on the rec center, for example. So the grant program has a lot of flexibility in it, and I trust the Energy Committee working with Kathleen to come up with something that is our best pitch, and even using the money that the Energy Committee has in its own budget to match it, if that will give you a better access to it. It's all about being able to attract as much funds as we can in a way that meets the needs, and you have that well organized. And so I trust that, and I think working with Kathleen on how you can fashion the best application, I don't think we have to wait till, I mean, we want to know what you're going to submit, so by the deadline, it'd be nice to see that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Follow along. At the end of the day, the town select board has to agree to sign any grant agreement. So I don't think they're going to do anything heinous, so we refuse that, but, you know, there's no risk on our part on this. But I'd be interested to see how you, whether it's the hiring of a person or a capital project or just what you choose. And I would encourage the board members to look into this, your whole program of
Yeah,
work plan.
if you are open to it, I would be happy to, probably a couple months from now, once we've got our plans more clearly defined, just to come in and kind of give you the story of all the different projects that we have in motion and kind of get your feedback about which ones seem to be the most useful and which ones are like, oh, I don't think you should do that, that's a bad idea. And then which ones are missing. So if you have thoughts about other things we should be doing, so I would welcome that. This particular topic, I mean, on the question of kind of sustainability, there are certain very specific outcomes about like just doing a review of like what are best practices that are happening in this regionally in the state at the federal level that we can bring to bear. Those things seems to me like there's a beginning, middle, and end, and you can say like we now can figure out whether or not we want to adopt those or not. The ongoing question of like how do you educate individual homeowners and residents and renters who are grappling with all of this does have a sustainability problem. Like how do we do this work? This grant will not solve that, so that's something that we're going to have to continue to talk about because it's a really hard, gnarly problem. This grant won't solve it, but I think that's worth continuing to talk about.
What's the size of this grant that you're applying for?
So it's between $50,000 and $100,000, and so the less you ask for, the more likely you are to get it, and the more you ask for, the more you can do. So we're asking for $75,000.
But you could also use some of your fund to leverage, put a
Right.
local match in there and sweeten the.
Right, and it's also, I mean, I guess, and part of what the proposal will be that, in terms of matching, is that we've raised a considerable amount of money to support this Energy Navigator program regionally, so we can point to the fact that it will live within an existing program that is, I wouldn't say it's funded forever, but we've got, you know, a couple of years of funding in place.
Full disclosure, I have to say, I was involved with enabling SEAC to obtain its 501c3 status and organize some years ago. The idea was to leverage money from the other sources, not just ask towns for the money, but to create a nonprofit that could access funds through other sources. So,
yeah, a kind of like tangential question. It seems to me, as someone with maybe a home project going on, that one of the problems isn't training the existing people in the trades, it's encouraging more people in the trades. And I'm wondering if you have thoughts about going to the career centers and looking at like, hey, there might be more lucrative pathways that you can advertise to younger students.
Absolutely. So that's one of the strands of work is looking at workforce development, which is trying to understand, and there are plenty of folks in other parts of Vermont at the state level.
State workforce development, I'm on that
Yeah,
board.
so we're just trying to figure out, and so
You're opening a can of worms, we're not.
Oh, yeah, we're not figuring out tonight, of course, but.
But I think
I'm just checking to
part
see
of
if
the
it was on
point, part of the
menu.
point of the grant is to figure out like what's happening at all these different levels and how do you actually bring it home to Middlebury, how do you bring it to Addison County, and how do you raise awareness? So there's tons of money sloshing around for all of this work, but it isn't clear that people know about like what's available, what are the programs. And so part of the project is just to say like, how do we make people aware of both, you know, the short-term and longer-term possibilities?
First thing we need is a lot more houses to bring it home.
That's right, but we need the workers to make the houses.
Well, you're not gonna get workers here if they can't live here, so.
Chicken and egg.
I would.
All right, what's your feelings on this?
Go forth and write grants.
I would move that the board authorize the submitting of the grant application with Kathleen's consent.
Second.
Okay, questions or comments on that motion? So eloquently stated. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, Mike. good luck.
Okay, wish me luck. We have work to do.
Not a lot of dissent on the.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
And do let me know if you want the kind of 20-minute what the Energy Committee is up to, just let me know and or I might just impose myself on you.
Oh, I just put you on the radar screen, Mike. So.
I saw a note and taken. Check warrants.
I've got them. I move to approve total expenditures in the amount of $856,495.47, consisting of $711,936.44 for accounts payable and $144,559.03 for payroll for the period of July 10th, 2024 through July 23rd, 2024.
Second.
Second, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Board member concerns, Heather?
I don't have anything.
Dan?
I have one, you were contacted a couple of weeks ago by Vermont Public about doing an interview. Obviously Andy was, so they've contacted me and kind of pushed me in the corner. Does anybody want to do that? And is it okay to do that interview? I've talked to the chief, and it has to do with the drones.
Yeah.
I don't know why they want to
Do
talk
it.
to a select board member. They're going to talk to Ethan, is Ethan? And yeah.
It'll be great.
I think you should do it.
I think you should.
You need it to be, for experience to move up,
I'm doing fine.
okay?
You've got this.
Why don't you do that?
No, what? Me talking about drones? They can come to me when we're talking about education or healthcare.
Okay, we'll remember that.
Okay, good.
Isabel?
I just want to give a shout out to the BMP. They've been doing a lot of great social media and highlighting like a lot of different things going on around town. So, love the increase in social media presence.
Good.
No concerns.
No concern.
All set tonight.
Wow.
I know.
I would just want to comment from my point of view. Appreciate Emily coming in and grappling with something that there's a sizable group of our community that is worried about. And I think we all recognize there's no immediate solution to, but we can at least address workarounds that will mitigate the impact it's having on that. I don't know if there's a long-term solution, but I think we need to look at it. It would be poor of us not to at least look into it, see what this beach plan, why does it not work? Is it strictly these 1,000-year storms, or is it maybe something not quite working? I do appreciate I kind of set Emily up, unfortunately, and I feel guilty about it, because I knew there was people who were not happy, but I think we need to hear their concerns.
And Emily went into this with her eyes wide open. She said, I could be on Zoom tonight, but I'll come down, because I wasn't.
Appreciated
That's
her
good.
comment.
Yeah.
That's great.
She's a very quality
Class act.
class up, yeah. I need for an executive session to cover several issues.
So the chiefs were here tonight. What are the chiefs? Oh gosh.
That's
Thanks,
crazy.
guys.
Good night, y'all.
So we do not have a need for contracts tonight, but we do.
So just the first one and this third one?
Yes, please.
I move to find that premature general knowledge regarding probable litigation to which the town would be a party would clearly place the town at a substantial disadvantage because the discussion to divulge the town's strategy in such probable litigation. That didn't sound right, did it?
Perfect.
Perfect, that's great.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to enter into executive session with the inclusion of the town manager and assistant town manager to discuss the appointment of a public officer, employee, and probable litigation as allowed under Title I, Section 313A1A, Title I, Section 31A3, and Title I, Section A31E. I don't know which one of that one was contracts, so I did them all.
The third one.
Is third one?
I don't know.
We still have to do personnel, right? Yes. Okay.
Second. Oh, Andy can have it.
All in favor?
Aye. We are in executive session.
Recording off?